Mm.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main event. You here with me, Daniel?
And Aaron.
Aaron, we're back. Another group preview to come. This one may not be as long as the other ones. I think we've got a couple of teams to Plzeň out of this one. So for anyone that hasn't heard Aaron and I use Plzeň, Aaron, do you want to explain what a team that is Plzeň'd, explain what that means?
So basically it means that there's a team where, regardless of domestic form, they are not a team to be able to invest in for Champions League, either based on fixtures or based on price, or just based due to kind of, we just have no interest in the team. We know that they're going to get beat every game. And so Plzeň, obviously going back to the group of death last season, but basically due to them, regardless of how they performed in their domestic league, we weren't going to get any of their players in. And so they got Plzeň, and it became a thing where we just would skip the team. But it means, with love and respect, we're not saying that they're a bad team. They're a Champions League team still. But in terms of fantasy Champions League, we're not picking them.
Yeah. Basically. I think the one sort of difference with this group is that there are two teams that might have got Plzeň.
So what do we do when they're against each other, Dan?
Exactly.
What do we do?
So I think in that case, we'll do something a very quick fire if you were to pick a player for when they play against each other. That being said, I would like to remind everyone that they play against each other in match day 2, which means that I think a lot of people are going to be limitless wildcarding. So let's
They're playing a chip in match day 2, I think, for a lot of people.
Yes. So you're probably not going to want them then. And then obviously it's going to be match day 5.
In which there's rotation.
And we aren't predicting until match day 5 yet, really. So who knows? Maybe by then. But if anyone becomes overly apparent, then we'll let you know. But we'll start with Man City.
The reigning champions.
The reigning champions of everything, of just football in general, except for the League Cup, thanks to Southampton. We love you, Southampton. For anyone that's been living under a rock, they've signed Jeremy Doku, Gvardiol, and Nunes. Their transfers out, Mahrez and Laporte are the main ones. They've obviously got other things. I think Cole Palmer, I don't know whether that went through to Chelsea. Did it go through? Yeah. He wasn't playing too much anyway. It was when we do these, it's the main ones. We're not going through all the ins and outs and loans and that sort of thing. Do you have a few injuries at the minute? KDB's out for a long time. For anyone, again, living under two rocks who doesn't know who KDB is, that's Kevin De Bruyne. Nathan Ake got injured during the current international break. And John Stones has been out for a little while. I had him game week 1 for FPL. I'm still regretting that, still lamenting it. So he's out for who knows? He just seems to be one of them like just going on and on and on. But that's quite nice for fantasy. Obviously, I don't wish ill on John Stones, especially when he's an England player, and I really like him. And I wish that Gareth Southgate could bench him because he's far too good to actually put in the starting 11 of England. It does make it a little bit more simple in terms of defenders because Man City kind of have like 4 or 5 to pick from now. If Ake is going to be out and he's not really going to be playing, maybe you play Rico Lewis or something against Red Star Belgrade. I don't know. They're in impeccable form. 4 wins from 4, a 3-0 win, a 1-0 win against us, 2-1 and 5-1. I don't really know what to say other than they're absolutely mint. I think we're probably going to have to talk about assets more than anything else. Aaron, Akanji's 5, Walker Diaz, Gvardiol 5.5, Edison 6.
Yep,
I didn't write him down. What are you thinking on this defense?
Well, Ruben Diaz is the player with the most points last season for Man City. He got 75 last season, and he was integral to them. In terms of 5.5, I don't think there's too many like really like expensive defenders that we're desperate to get into our team. I think it's not like kind of like a Trent Alexander-Arnold kind of situation where it doesn't matter how much he is, we're going to try our best to get him in our team. So I feel like it kind of opens a lot of flexibility in terms of that. So DS with the ball recoveries, I think that makes him a really, really good asset. And it shows with the amount of points that he got last season. I think there was only one game that he didn't start, that he started last season. I don't think he played the full 90 either that they conceded. He kept a clean sheet every time he played in Europe last year. So he is integral to that team. In terms of the rest of the defense, though, I think this Man City are going to, especially with this group, are going to be heavily invested in. We are going to have multiple players from this team. And so, especially before the kind of rotation kicks in, match day 5 and 6, we want to exploit. They want to get through. They want to be able to put their feet up as much as they can, closer to the end of the group stage. In terms of the defense, though, DS 25% owned, so a quarter of teams have him in. Ake 15%, which obviously that'll change depending on the nature of his injury. But I don't know if that's just more due to his price at 4.5.
I think his price has a lot to do with it. But with him being injured now and likely injured for this game, out of all these players, seems to be the one that can get injured the most. He's got to be a hard avoid. I think it's interesting that you say Diaz has the most amount of points. I think there are two clear picks of that defense in the Akanji and Diaz. And for me, the reason is because Ake is injured, because John Stones is injured. I feel like the two. I know that they play a back four, where they'll play one fullback that'll push into the midfield, and then the other fullback's actually sort of a centre back that'll tuck across. So Gvardiol and Walker are the most at risk for rotation, in my opinion, because I think Lewis can play both sides, and I think they might still have Gomez at left back as well. I'm not sure how many minutes he'll get, because he sort of messed it up a little bit for them last year against Copenhagen, I think it was. So with that in mind, I can see Gvardiol, but particularly Kyle Walker, being rested for a game like this. Lewis plays. He's quite cheap, but that's a risk. It's such a risk to gamble on that, on Lewis actually playing. Whereas because of the injury to Stones and Ake, I just think Diaz and Akanji are going to play so many minutes until they've qualified. And with Akanji being 5 million less than the rest, I think that's a cheat code. He's in my team. I think that's a steal because, yes, I do agree that Diaz is likely going to get more points. But I think Diaz is maybe 1 point more game, and I'd rather have the 0.5 million to invest elsewhere. I don't think either of them are outstandingly dangerous from set pieces with regards to actually putting the ball in the net or getting assists, unless Kanji wants to continue standing in the way of the ball and jumping out of the way of it at the last minute. But I mean, would you, just for those that have picked Edison, loads of people have picked Edison.
21%.
Why? Someone write in the comments, if you've got Edison, why have you got Edison? Is it because he's nailed when he's not? Because Ortega played 2 games last year?
This is the type of group where you would play Ortega.
Yeah, like I'd be playing
to make
Ortega.
sure he get, like, if they have a chance of winning it again this year, that he gets his medal.
Yeah, I'd be, but personally, I think that be playing Ortega. That's my hot take. Maybe I'd say maybe not in the first game, but
later on,
Red Star Belgrade in the first game.
Yeah, you don't want to be making a goalkeeper transfer if you can help it.
Yeah, I think there are so many good value goalkeepers that this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, Akanji 11%, Gvardiol 8%, Kyle Walker 7%, Stones 5%.
5% picking an injured player. Classic. I reckon that's got to be a lot of auto teams.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe they don't touch their team until...
Yeah, I get that. I appreciate that. Don't want to tinker too much. Looking at the midfielders, oh my goodness me. It's just a minefield. Obviously, Rodri plays every game. He has 2 goals and assists already this season.
30%
Carrying
owned.
on from how well he played last year. we are at the point. I say we. I'm including you and my previous opinions of Rodri. Sorry, Aaron. We come as a pair. He's the most improved player in this Man City team for me over the last 2 years. Thought he was quite poor in big games historically. Dortmund, Paris Saint-Germain are two that really spring to mind for how bad he was. Didn't see any of that last year. He was absolutely fantastic. Don't think he had the best first half in the Champions League final, but he had a cracker of a second. And I can understand why people are paying $6.5 million for him. He's going to get ball recoveries. He might get a goal. He got 2 last year. One of them was ruled out, and they were his first two Champions League goals. So it's not exactly like he's prolific. I don't know whether I would want him over some of the 6 millions that we've talked about for the previous groups, or some of the 6 millions we're maybe talking about in future. There's another 6.5 million midfielder in this group that I think a lot of people are going to have because of attacking potential. So the Rodri situation is interesting. I think Kovacic picked up an injury over the international break as well. No idea how serious that is. Not that I think he's an option anyway, because he's an outrageously good footballer that doesn't actually do anything from a fantasy point of view. Doku's just signed 7 million. I thought he did well in his opener against Fulham. Foden 8 million. And Alvarez 7 million. You've also got other players like Bernardo Silva, but he's not really been featuring heavily into. He's sort of been in and out. Whereas I think Foden has been playing a lot in the team, and it's just been a case of he's been injured at time. So he was poorly, wasn't he? In the 2-1 win, he was poorly, and then he came back in. There's too much to unpack for me personally from that Man City midfield. I do think Alvarez likely plays, but he's a forward on the game. What are you thinking about this Man City midfield?
I think that the fact that they have a double pivot kind of screening the back 2, back 3, they kind of just do what they want, don't they? I think that the fact that they've got both Rodri and someone else helping him has really helped Rodri's game. And so the fact that Kovacic is there now helps, but I think that also takes away ball recoveries potentially.
Yeah.
If we look at kind of other defensive midfielders at 6.5, they are the premium at that price. So it's like kind of the Casemiro from a few years ago where they're going to chip in with a guaranteed goal at 1 point. In terms of Rodri at this point in time, he is pivotal to that, how Man City function as a team. That also boosts his player of the match appeal, I feel like.
Yes. That is something that is what I've got to pay attention to. That you get 3 points for player of the match. And I think there are generally going to be 2 outstanding candidates for player of the match, and it's going to be Rodri or Haaland if he bags a hat-trick or whatever. I think it's just going to be them two predominantly.
But the only downside to it is who they're against. I think the opposition are not going to have the ball that much for them to get ball recoveries. So Rodri, I think he's a great, he's such an improved player, but he's actually not in my team currently. And because of opposition and because there's 2 defensive midfielders now, I don't think he's going to have enough ball recoveries for that premium defensive midfielder kind of price point. That's just me personally, though.
Yeah. I think, honestly, you're probably looking at maybe a goal in these games from him. I actually think that's like a long distance strike, which he's more than capable of doing, or maybe a goal in the box from a set piece. He's such a handful in there. I think that's something that he's going to be adding to his game. He already has added that a little bit more, but he's actually been quite consistent with goals. I think he's scored 5 or 6 a season sort of guy. Maybe just on a bit of a hot streak. Maybe that's going to actually improve, especially when, like you say, they've got someone else with him now in there, whether that be Kovacic or the fullback pushing in. I don't really like trying to pick between these midfielders for who's going to play. I kind of stand Pep Roulette. And in terms of early fixtures, we're not going to get it until Red Star for the final game, which is perfect in a sense that for that last game, away to Red Star, you can plough into 3 Man City players. I would pay attention though, because they might finish top of the group, nothing to play for, maybe a mishmash of a team, and you never quite know what you get. They did lose to Copenhagen last year, didn't they? 1-0 because of the red card and Mahrez missed a pen, and Rodri had a goal disallowed. I think that all happened in the game. And I think they lost 1-0.
Speak it into existence.
It happened. If it didn't happen, it has now. Might have been 1-1 or something. I cannot remember.
I don't think Copenhagen won.
I cannot remember. We'll have to fact check me. Well, definitely 1-0 up in Mahrez, Mr. Pet. I'd captained Mahrez, and it was the game. It's the game that everyone owned Gomez, and he got sent off. I limitless wildcarded that week. I think.
Yeah, 0-0.
Was 0-0, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was 0-0. Pardon me.
That feels like defeat, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely was when I captained him. Penalty miss -2 or something it was. Anyway, digress. The forwards, Alvarez and Haaland. I've actually seen some people go for Alvarez over Haaland, who's 7 million versus 11.5. Alvarez has an assist and a penalty win. Remember, you don't get assists in this game for winning penalties. They are classed as penalty wins. You get 2 points, whether you score or miss or whatever. And also, if you win a pen and take it, you get the 2 points plus if you score or you miss. So I still think Haaland's the better pick. I'd rather have him for the extra 4.5 million.
I'm surprised he's not the most picked player.
He's got 5 open play goals. He's got a penalty goal. So that's 6 goals overall. And he has an assist. I just think he dwarfs. He's a captaincy pick on your first game.
Yeah. 71% currently, and there is a player who's more selected than him.
There is a player more selected than him. It's 71%.
Yeah. Do you want a quick guess? It's not in this group.
I've got absolutely no idea who that could be.
Jude Bellingham.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But in terms of Haaland, at home, like he's always better at home from like what FPL kind of has shown. But in terms of this opposition, Haaland has the highest of high ceilings. Like, this
is a guy that scored a hat-trick on his Champions League debut for Salzburg against some farmers as well.
Haaland against a team that still strikes fear into you to this day.
Yeah. Oh, don't.
We need Haaland in our teams. We can't witness another Dan meltdown on the channel.
I'm still not over it. I'm set. People ask me about this all the time. It's something that will never leave me. It'll be on my graves. It'll be like on my tombstone.
It'll have the day you were born, the day you died, and the day you didn't captain Haaland.
The day I didn't own Haaland. People keep on saying captain. I didn't own him. To captain. I had to captain. You know how bad it was, Aaron? I had to captain Mahrez, who didn't even start the game. Just on the off chance.
That's bad.
Oh, fuming. I'll tell you what, 3 of them goals were so lucky as well. Like off the bar and tap. Oh, you can sod off, honestly. On to their opponents, Red Star. I'm so sorry, Red Star. I don't want to talk too much about you. You are in great form. You've got 4 wins in your last 5 games. You're actually giving some teams a good hiding. 4-0, 4-1, 3-0, 2-1. You did lose a game 3-2. Bit of a red flag. However, one of those 3-0 wins came courtesy of 2 own goals as well, and the wing-back scored. They do play with wing-backs, so they do play 3 centre-backs, wing-backs, 3 centre midfielders, and 2 strikers. Crasso seems to be the one that's in the goals a lot, so he's got 2 normal play goals and a penalty goal, as well as 2 assists. But all of those came in the first 2 games of the season. He's not really done much since. I sort of stopped looking, honestly, because there wasn't anyone in this team that's anything like a talismanic figure. Defensively, Glazer's the goalkeeper at 4.5 million. Look, you do whatever you want. You do whatever you want. Dejanic is a 4 million defender. I'm not sure if he is going to play. He's played 3 of the last 5. But he had a bit of a nightmare in that 3-2 game. He got dropped for the 3-2 game. and after the 3-2 game for the 2-1 win. And I can't really see him getting back in, especially when the centre-back, Dragovic has scored, Rodic has came in, Mihailovic has came in, and Mihailovic has scored. I think that's going to be the back three, Mihailovic, Dragovic, Rodic. So I probably wouldn't get dragged into that trap despite his price. We've already named a 4 million defender that I think I'd rather punt on from Feyenoord, even at the risk of him not playing. Don't do it yourself. Like, are you going to do it yourself?
No, there's only one player in this team that is selected by more than 0%.
What?
And that is the 4.5 midfielder Stamenic. And I think that is literally just due to his price point.
He plays every game. He does play every game. But yeah, 4.5 million. Yeah, go for Sociedad's 4.5 million midfielder, Banastera. I think I actually have him in.
But yeah, I think that's literally just price point, but there's better. Yeah.
If you're the 1% watching this,
I doubt it, but
please change.
Maybe they are the fans.
Yeah, maybe they are fans of the team. To all you Crvena Zvezda fans, welcome to the channel. We are ever so sorry. Next game. Oh, actually, no, we've got the prediction. What we're going for for this game?
3-0.
I'm going to go 5. Nice round, odd number. 5-0. I'm going to go for. And I can see I've got Haaland. I'm going to captain him. I can see him not even lasting an hour. I think he bags a brace or a hat-trick off for the weekend. Happy days. Get your goal bonus, son. On to the next one. Something to think about, maybe. But it's got to be a meltdown, isn't it, if they win 5-0 and Haaland doesn't score? It's like that time.
It's a good thing it's on the first day.
Exactly. When Liverpool beat, I think it was Bournemouth or something, 9-0, 9-1, and Salah didn't get a return. Oof. I don't know what it is. It's got that sort of feeling. I'm not backing against Haaland ever again in my entire life, though. Leipzig away to Young Boys. This is actually the early fixture, or one of the two early fixtures on the Tuesday, which I think is quite nice for Leipzig if you want to pick any of their players. I do think they've got some interesting players. I do want to fly through some of their transfers in and out, and some of their injuries, etc. Just keep on top of things because they've had a lot. So out, Gvardiol, obviously, Soboslai, and Nku. That's a massive amount of change, like in terms of quality. But then Andre Silva, who was their primary number 9 last year, so huge. They've lost the main attacking midfielder. They've lost their 2 main strikers, and they've lost the main centre back. Angelino left permanently. I think he went on loan somewhere for the second half of the season. Konrad Laimer, holding midfielder, he was missing for most of last year anyway with an injury, but he is joined Bayern Munich. And Alexander Soloth has left. He was a striker, but he wasn't really getting a sniff. Anyway, it doesn't mean too much of the game. They've signed Openda up front for a lot of money, I believe. Baumgartner, who is a central attacking midfielder. Lukba, centre back for 30 million euros. Benjamin Sesko, who they'd signed last summer but loaned back to Salzburg, I believe. He's a very good player. I think Newcastle were looking at him as well before we signed Alexander Isak. But he's a really good talent, Sesko. Striker, but operates on the right a lot as well. Seevold and Xavi Simons. So they've had a busy transfer period, injuries-wise. Simikan's injured. I don't know when he's back. Hadara, central midfielder, he's back in September sometime, so he's likely going to miss the Young Boys game. We'll get a better idea of how he's going to be reintegrated back into the squad. And we're not going to want him for match day 2 against Man City anyway, I doubt. Dani Olmo got injured for Spain during the international break. I think that's scuppered a lot of people's plans because he did unbelievably well in the final of the German Cup against Bayern Munich. Did he score a hat-trick?
Yeah.
And then he got a goal and assist in his last 2 games. Sorry, 2 goals and an assist in his last 3 games. My apologies to you, Dani Olmo, for underselling you. I just think he was in so many people's teams. And with that injury, he's going to have to come out. I'm not sure when he's back, but I don't think it's anytime soon. I think it sort of came out today. For anyone curious about how Leipzig play, they play a back four with two holding midfielders. They then play two central attacking midfielders, or right and left. And they've got two strikers who have sort of freedom to play box, but also come out wide. They're quite fluid in that sense. They absolutely stuffed Bayern Munich in the German Cup final, as I mentioned earlier. They then lost the first game of the season 3-2. Classic Leipzig. They then won 5-1 and they beat Union Berlin, obviously a really good team in this competition, 3-0 away from home as well. That's a very impressive win. Aaron, anything crying out here from Leipzig before we're jumping in individual players?
I think the fact that they beat Union Berlin convincingly before the international break. I know that they've obviously have had the injuries now in the international break, but it just shows that Union Berlin, another Champions League quality team, that they beat 3-0. And then they also beat Bayern Munich convincingly. So I don't think that this is, like we might know the fact that they've had some key players leave or in transfers, but they're still really well drilled in this kind of new looking team. So because they've already got some really good results to start the season.
Yeah. We've already discussed another 4.5 million goalkeeper in the group from Red Star Belgrade, and that's sort of why we just shrugged it off, because Leipzig's goalkeeper is 4.5 million. Blažević, he's just go there if you're looking for a 4.5 million on a Tuesday. And there are other goalkeepers as well that you could go for on the Tuesday fixtures, but I think he's a great pick. It's against young boys, early kickoff as well on a Tuesday, so it's all over and done with, and you can sub him out if it doesn't go well for maybe a more safe pick on the Wednesday. You're not going to want him for that match day 2 against Man City at home, but you don't have to have him because most people are going to use a chip on match day 2 anyway. Defenders wise, I think Henriks is my personal favourite. He's a right back. He's 4.5 million, a goal and an assist in his last 2 games, and he's absolutely nailed on. Obviously, with Simikan getting injured, so Simikan's a centre back for anyone that doesn't know. We don't know how long he's out for yet, and we don't know who's going to come in. Orban's more expensive, doesn't offer loads of attacking threat. If anything, it's just from set pieces, really. And he doesn't do that often enough. There is Raum at left back, 2 assists in his last 3. Do you know how much Raum is?
4.5.
So you could go for Raum as well if you didn't want to go for Henriks. I think the much of a muchness. I think Henriks obviously has a little bit more of a goal threat, but Raum is very attacking as well.
Henriks is 1% owned and Raum is 4%, if that helps sway.
I think Raum's more heavily owned because he plays more popular for Germany. He's Germany's regular left back. I think that's literally why he's been picked more. I would go for one of those. I wouldn't go for the centre backs for Leipzig personally. I think they naturally like having high full backs to account for the lack of width higher up in attacking midfield areas.
Yeah.
They have as their holders Schlager and Campbell predominantly. They do have Seiwald as well, who I think got the brought in from Salzburg as well. I think this is just the Red Bull hokey cokey as per with these 2 clubs. All of them are fine if you're looking for like holding midfielders. I personally wouldn't go with them. Just I don't know how many they're going to get, and I think for the price of them all, none of them are like really cheap. I think you're going to go for obviously people would have went for almost 7 million, but I think the other midfielder that's outstanding in this category is Xavi Simons at 6.5 million, who has 2 goals and 3 assists in his last 2 games. Any thoughts on any of these midfielders so far?
He's 10% owned, Simons, but is it Seiwald? He's 12% owned, but he doesn't play. 4.5. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, 4.5 midfielder that plays for a good team. I think, again, it's just the kind of price point, and I guess we kind of just gravitate towards Leipzig.
I think it's price point, and I think anyone that's a little bit more familiar with the game would have seen him and went, "Oh, he plays every week for Red Bull, but it's Salzburg, not Leipzig."
Yeah.
It's annoying when you look at them and you're like, well, which I find it so difficult to remember which one played for which half the time, and it's like invariably it's usually both of them. But yeah, I think that's it. People would have seen, oh yeah, Saville played a lot for Salzburg last year. Salzburg do get ball recovery points.
I think he's potentially like a next year pick.
Yeah, potentially. We need to see who's going to play in more games for them, but Campbell and Schlager played the last two together. Werner hasn't been playing much as a striker. When he does play, he's been playing as one of them attacking midfielders. So I think Werner's a bit of a no-go for everyone. Like, I needed to tell you that. Like, you needed to watch this to tell you that. Striker-wise, it's been Openda, it's been Olmo, who's now injured. Poulsen's been in there. But Sesko came off the bench against Union Berlin and bagged a brace. Openda's got 2 goals in his 3 games. I think Openda's probably the safe pick. He started all 3 games this season in the league. 7.5 million, so you can join that category again. There's just so many 7.5 million midfielders. Against Young Boys away, I think it's a good fixture. But Young Boys, I think they beat Man United at home.
1-0.
I remember Saka got sent off. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said 1-0 because I thought it was 2-1. So I'm glad you said.
Ooh, it might have been. Let's check.
More fact checking. I remember Saka got sent off, and it was hilarious. Because I didn't own any Man United players.
2-1.
2-1.
Good job.
Oof.
Mate won.
Yeah. So we know that Young Boys aren't terrible, but I also think that Man United team are particularly bad on the day. From what I remember watching,
It's all Ronaldo's fault.
It was all Ronaldo's fault. He's lazy. He's just a lazy. Who wants laziness when you can? I don't care if he scored 1,000 goals. He's lazy. Sesko is interesting. Also 7.5, but his problem is I don't know whether he's going to start, and I'd rather just have Feyenoord's forward or Morata or someone like that I know is going to play against someone that is poor. I think that's the issue with these players for Openda and Sesko, but they're there for you if you want to take a punt on them. Any other thoughts on Leipzig in general? Any other players? Anyone that you're looking at?
Nobody that I think you've mentioned everyone.
Right, Aaron, I know you're really, really excited to do a deep dive on Young Boys.
That sounds very interesting for this podcast.
That also, that came out in a particular way.
Yeah, no.
No. Join our Patreon for that. No.
The fact that they're at home helps them out because they have gotten results in the past. I think the biggest question is, who do you see finishing 3rd or 4th, Young Boys or Red Star?
Young Boys.
I just see them finishing 4th.
I see Young Boys finishing 3rd. They give Atalanta a run for the money a couple of years ago. They beat Man United, as we've discussed. I think they've got more experience. I think they're technically actually like a fairly good team. Like, they know how to retain possession of the ball. These aren't going to be whipping boys. I just think against Man City, they're going to be hopeless. And that's not their fault. That is Man City's fault. And opening day, I just think Leipzig's the one that you maybe not going to want. And then it's just the positions for me. It's who do you go for? The goalkeeper's 4.5 million. Would you not just rather have Leipzig's goalkeeper?
Yeah.
And then you've got all the defenders of 4.5 million. But would you not just rather have Leipzig's fullbacks? And then you've got the midfielder, 5.5 million, Emery. And the reason I pulled him out was because he's the cheapest midfielder that actually plays, and he's done nothing. So would you not just rather have someone else? And that's the issue with this game, is it just puts in a position where I'd just rather have this other player. And it's a shame. In terms of Young Boys to qualify, they drew 0-0 and then won 3-0. Ugrinic scored, Itten scored, Elia got an assist. I don't think there were assists for the other goals, and I think one of them was an own goal. Then I don't think they're a super exciting team. They don't have Red Star until match day 2, which is when I think a lot of people will be limitlessing. So you don't need to go super budget. You just need to go for favourable fixtures. And I don't know how much Young Boys versus Red Stars a favourable fixture for them anyway. I think they're going to, personally, I think they're going to be great value for the Champions League, because I do think they play a really interesting style of football. I think a lot of people will be surprised by them if they take the time to watch them. And I think a lot of people actually appreciate how well they're coached. But this isn't a Champions League podcast. It's a Champions League fantasy football podcast. And I can't, in good faith, say, oh, get this player, I get that player. I just think I'd rather have so many other players.
I think this will be interesting when it comes to like match day. I think it's like match day 3 and 4 against Man City, when it's getting covered on TV and the pundits don't have a clue about any of the young boys, like players. They're probably going to conveniently forget that they beat Man U a couple of years ago. Andrew with Man U in the same year. Yeah.
Did they draw the
1-1,
away leg?
yeah.
Did they draw
2-1, 2-1, and 1-1.
Magic.
But that's going to be conveniently forgotten with Rio Ferdinand. So, but I think it's going to be interesting where the pundits don't really know.
Yeah,
they're going to just all be about Man City, which rightly so. Man City will probably still win 3-0, but I think there'll be a couple of players here where it wouldn't surprise me where, based on the game against Man City, they'll get a big move to
Brighton.
Yeah.
And then after that, a big move to Chelsea. Welcome to Chelsea, Lopa, for 70 million euros in 3 years' time. Congratulations, calling it. Well done, mate. Well done. What do you think the score's going to be for this game?
Tough. I think I had Leipzig to win. So I'm going to say 2-1.
I'm also going to say 2-1. I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think.
The only reason I said 1 is because I'm going to go for the Leipzig keeper, and I know that it's not going to go well.
Oh, are you really going for Plastic? Decent. I like it. In terms of the group overall, how do you think it's going to finish? Who's 1, 2, 3, 4?
Man City, Leipzig. I'm going to go Red Star, and then Young Boys.
I'm going to go.
Even though I've just sang their praises, I think it's because I forgot the nature in which they beat Man U.
Fortuitous?
No, I just forgot about it.
Oh, had you?
Yeah,
oh, right.
Yeah.
They played really well.
You made me come back around. I'm like,
I'm gonna go for. Obviously Man City, Leipzig, then Young Boys, then Svena Svesta is the fourth place.
I did the Joe Cole.
Did you? Yeah, the Red Star. I mean, we've said both. I think that's fair. That's the end of that one. Thank you so much again for watching. If you've put up with us too for this amount of time, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at UCL Fantasy Pod. Also, don't forget to follow Gallowgate Shots if you are interested in any Newcastle-based content. Please like and subscribe to this video, and we will see you for the next one. We're flying through them. Bye now.